Welcome to our YouTube Live. My name is Brian, and I'm your AMSOIL dealer. I'm your online AMSOIL dealer. We always say, we're trying to sell something. People don't like AMSOIL dealers, people that are familiar with it. And that's just too bad because if you don't like something, maybe you should listen to some of what they have to say. I had to learn that in talk radio. Uh, when you want to hear both sides of something, listen to the talk radio hosts of either side, such as there's left wing hosts and there's right wing hosts, like Mark Levin for the right, and I don't even know who for the left. I have listened to them, but I don't really remember who they are exactly. Um, and But I do remember their viewpoints. Now I don't agree with their viewpoints, but at least I listened to what they had to say. And part of the reason why I listened to what they had to say is because I just wanted to make sure that how I felt about things was not exactly how they were going to feel about it. So we're going to talk about oil. Okay, we're talking about motor oil. Motor oil myths that a lot of people think that they have that's going on. So thicker oil provides better protection. That's one myth that people believe, and it's just simply not true. Thicker oil does not mean better oil. What it means basically is um, well, in the past, people have used thicker oil as an excuse. They have not had a chance to really understand what oil really is, what motor oil really is. What motor oil is just simply a lubricant. Motor oil can also be thought of as a hydraulic fluid within the engine, because in a way, when it's being pushed by the oil pump through different galleys and gullies and different avenues for which it's going to, in the cranks and in the bearings and up into the valves and different areas that the oil needs to go, it has to almost act as a hydraulic to get it to, at some point it's a hydraulic fluid. It has to flow. And so that's one way to do it. It's a coolant. It has to act as a coolant. It has to cool off the components to reduce that friction. I'm gonna try to share this live, and I'm not really sure how to do that. I'm new. See, I'm a tech guy. I come from the tech world, but I've never been a um, see. I've never been doing the live thing online before, as far as doing lives. So I'm kind of like trying to feel my way around. So just bear with me. Excuse me if you happen to be watching. Give me just a moment. And let me see if I can figure out how to share this live so I can say it's on my channel. Let's take a look. Let's see. I need subscribers, so that's another thing. If you are a subscriber, you happen to be watching this, I really would appreciate some subscriptions if you like this kind of content. We're talking about motor oil, um, and that's one of the things that we need. I've got 690 subscribers, and um, to get monetized, I've got to get 1,000 subscribers. I need some more watch hours. That would certainly help. Um, see if I can get this posted. You have to forgive me. Um, I'm live on YouTube. Please subscribe. I know I'm acting like a boomer right now. Okay, so coming back to motor oil myths. So Thicker oil is better. People believe that thicker oil is better for some reason. They think that because something's thicker, it's going to be better. There is some truth to that. Where did my chat window go? Now my chat window went away. So now I've got to. There we go. So they believe that thicker oil is better. Well, what it boils down to is they think that when you've got two components that are running next to each other, okay, you've got this set of components, and let's say and they're spinning at a high rate of speed, or say this is like a top-down view of the cylinder, inside the cylinder wall, and it's going up and down, or you can do it like this. This is your cylinder. Well, it's kind of hard for me to show, but basically, you've got your cylinder go up and down the side of the wall. And so you've got this space, and let's just blow it up real quick and make it this space right here. And inside this space, you need like a hydraulic pressure, or what they call a kinematic velocity. And that's kind of what they're talking about when they talk about lubrication. Okay. This separation, you need a certain amount of separation, a hydraulic separation that you need. And so they believe that thicker is better. Well, in certain cases, I guess this would be true, but this is kind of old news. This is kind of old thinking. What we've been led to believe, and is and it makes sense. It makes perfect sense of what the way people think, the way it works is okay. Thicker, it keeps it away. Well, what about the other side of the cylinder wall? Okay, so if it's thicker on this side too, and thicker on this side too, but it's only meant to be this thick, the oil meant to be this thick, but it's this thick on this side, but then it's thicker on this side. You're going to have issues. And so when you use like a thicker oil, for instance, if you put like a 40 weight inside of inside of a 20 weight car, let's say it's like less than 250, 300,000 miles. If you've been using even full synthetic oil or conventional oil, you're going to have issues. What kind of issues? Well, you're going to have heat issues. It's going to generate a massive amount of heat, and it's going to start to deteriorate over time. Also, there's certain little pinpoints. There's little areas that the oil shoots out of in engines. Now, I'm not an engine expert, but anybody that's an engine builder knows exactly what I'm talking about. Uh, and this oil, it will go through there, in certain cases. But for the most part, what you're going to run into is the oil is not going to be able to escape into these areas that it needs to get into, and a clog, it makes it easier to clog. And then if you starve the engine or the component of oil, there you go, you've got a catastrophic failure in your engine. So it's imperative that you run the oil that the owner's manual calls for. If you're running a 20 weight oil, then you need to run a 20 weight oil. Now if you've got a car, an older car, much older car, like an 80s or 90s car, and you're running it as a daily, or I hope you're not, but you could be, you might have rebuilt the thing or something. But you've got a car that's like an 80 or 90s build, and you've got 500,000 or 600,000 miles on it, and you've been using conventional oil. Well, chances are the oil has worn down. The very inferior oil compared to AMSOIL has worn down that area. So instead of it being like this, some kind of component, you've got you know it's doing like this, and a thicker oil would be okay. People have been using the Lucas oil treatment to reduce lifter noise. Um, you know, I just can't go along with that. If it's got a lifter noise, there's a problem. There's an issue, and it needs to be addressed, not just by giving it, a Lucas oil treatment. Now, if I understand economics. I live in the real world too. So I know that sometimes that's not a possibility. You've got to go get the Lucas oil treatment to make that noise go away before you sell the hunk of junk. You know, I'm not condoning dishonest practice, but if your wife has a ticking valve and it's really not doing any harm, throw it in there. I mean, I don't know. I'm an AMSOIL dealer, so I'm here to tell you that we don't advocate using um, additives. Okay. Now let me check to see if anyone's chat me at all, because I don't want to be like ignoring anybody. So I'm just gonna say hello. All right. So, all right. So someone's got to be viewing me. Somebody's looking at something out there. Okay. So that's number one. So we've kind of debunked that myth about um, thicker oil is better. Thicker oil is not better. I don't care what they say. They tell you. If you've got an old car and you got an old tractor and you've got and it doesn't run or it pours oil out and you've got to constantly fill it with oil, and it runs say just 30 weight oil in an old tractor. Um, and you've got to get a gallon of Lucas every 4 or 5 days just to keep it running, and you don't have any other choice. Then please go do that. Continue to do that and just make it work for you for your purpose in your application that you're trying to do. Um, you know, Now, let's go to myth number two. Changing oil every 3,000 miles is necessary. Well, that's not true at all. You do not have to change your oil every 3,000 miles. That is a myth that has been perpetuated by the oil change chains back in the 70s. They wanted you to come back, so they had to kind of tell you, oh yeah, you need to come back every 3,000 miles. And I really think that the car manufacturers have kind of gone along with that, and they kind of caught the meta on that, and they were just like, well, this is a good idea. Maybe we can also cash in on this idea too, where we can say, oh yeah, you need to change every 3,000 miles. Well, back in the day of pure conventional oil, the 3,000 mile interval was probably not a bad idea. And in fact, before that, and this is with Group 1, Group 2 oils, motor oils for vehicles, a 2,000 mile, 1,000 mile oil change interval was not a bad idea. When you went cross country to visit a relative, by God, you needed to change the oil when you got there because the oil was on its way out. It just was not it just was not manufactured in such a way until AMSOIL showed up on the scene. 1968, Al Amatuzio came up with the formula for the 25,000 mile oil, or our signature series oil that we've had. Back in the day, it was a 30 and a 40 weight oil. It was a multi-viscosity oil. It was not a universal oil. It was 100% synthetic, and they got it API and SAE certified in 1972. So it's an official SAE certified uh, thing. So you've got a total thing. It's 25,000 miles. It's warranted that way. Fuel dilution, it does not count. That's why you need to do oil analysis. We suggest doing that. Learn your equipment, people. Learn your equipment. There's nothing more I hate than for someone to come to me and say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy if you think you can go 25,000 miles on this kind of oil. Well, it depends on your application, sir. I mean, if you're using Signature Series motor oil and you do an oil change interval of 25,000 miles, you better be doing an oil analysis to make sure that you don't have a lot of fuel dilution. Fuel dilution, we can't, I don't know of a way to beat that. I'm sure there's some kind of advanced filtration system that you can install on your vehicle or your tractors or what have you that will let you beat that oil change interval. And I'm not selling this drink either. Um, I usually like to drink water, but today I'm drinking Coke Zero. It's just I'm in the mood. Sometimes I'm in a Coke Zero mood. All right, so bam, every 3,000 miles is necessary. Debunked. The reason why is because the old oil was conventional oil. It had a low burn rate. It had a low, it would burn. It would start burning at like 220 degrees or 210 degrees or something like that. Just about the same, heat as an oven. And you would just have black oil before you knew it. Like in a regular gas burning, say just say just in a 55 Chevy, for instance, you go 1,000 miles and that stuff's burned if you're using straight conventional oil. And I saw a video today of someone had some old Pennzoil, and nothing against Pennzoil. We're not dogging Pennzoil. We're just talking about what it was. It was an old oil can of Pennzoil. Excuse me. And they use one of those old, metal pour uh, faucets or whatever you have that you stick in it, and then you pour the oil into the engine. And I thought that was kind of cool and nostalgic at the same time. But they were like, "Hey, everything old is better. You need to use this old oil. It's so cool." And the sound of it pouring in was so cool, and the way it poured in, it was so cool. And it was really neat. And I just thought that was something that people would enjoy. Um, but it's just not there. You don't use pins. I mean, excuse me, don't use old conventional oil and think you're doing your engine a favor. You're not. If anything, you're doing damage, direct damage, because a lot of the older oils did not have any kind of additive package that helps protect your engines. Even if you have an older engine that has run on it for years, at least use a newer oil. I mean, I'm an AMSOIL dealer, so buy AMSOIL, but I mean, at least use a newer oil. Go to your local Napa, O'Reilly's, Walmart, and pick you up a modern oil if you can't get a hold of an AMSOIL dealer. I mean, you can contact me. We can get your AMSOIL squared away in 2 or 3 days. Bam. I mean, just plan ahead. A lot of people say, well, I want to get it now. Well, plan ahead. Use your noggin. I mean, in 500 miles you're going to change your oil, so call me or call an AMSOIL dealer that's local and get your oil. Support a local business. There's a lot of local people that are suffering right now. And I like to champion that. I like to champion local people. I mean, if you live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I'm sure that there's AMSOIL dealers there. There's probably a bunch there. You're in Atlanta, Georgia. Go find a local dealer. Don't just order it online. Try to find it local. And even if you do order it online, you still have an AMSOIL dealer that you're assigned. It could be anywhere in the United States or Canada, and they would be your AMSOIL dealer, and they would earn the commissions based on it. I don't care what you say. You can argue with me till you're blue in the face. That's how AMSOIL does it. All right. I was off on a tangent, and I got to get back on track. So 3,000-mile oil change. That is a thing that is debunked. You do not have to do that anymore. AMSOIL has a 25,000-mile oil change. We also now have on our extended life oil, we have a 20,000-mile oil. It's not as expensive as the Signature series, but it does give you the extended drain. And it's a lot of fun. You can use that. And it's not as, it doesn't have just quite as much of the oil change, life, but it has the same great protection as the Signature Series 25,000-mile oil. So that's really been debunked. You don't have to change your oil at 3,000 miles. Now everybody says, well, it's not gonna hurt. I'm just spending a little bit more money. Well, let me tell you something. You're giving money away. You're giving money away. And if you like giving money away, be my guest. Go ahead. I mean, I can't make you. I can just, it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I'm telling you, you don't have to do that. Okay? You do not have to do that. It is outdated thinking. It is yesterday's thinking. You do not have to do that. Even Syntec, they have Walmart. I mean, I wouldn't run Syntec in my lawnmower, but Syntec has a 20,000-mile oil change interval. Um, I mean, if you got to run Walmart oil because you just happen in that moment don't have enough money or something, run it. But I wouldn't run it a long time. I wouldn't follow what they say on that label, and I'm not trying to dog them or anything. I just run oil analysis and see if you can get 20,000 miles out of it. Maybe you could. I have no idea. I would scare to say that if you're not using AMSOIL, you're playing games. Okay, you're playing games. Okay. All additives improve performance. Okay, so there's these little bottles they sell you, in your local stores, Walmart and O'Reilly's and Napa and Advanced Auto Parts, that say, "Oh, we're going to give you more of this and more of that. Let's add this zinc additive to my, new racing car, my Subaru WRX or something." And if you add zinc to your motor oil and you have catalytic converters, you're going to clog the catalytic converter, and you're going to have a mechanic bill of thousands of dollars for them to replace the catalytic converters. Don't add additives. unless you really know what you're doing. You're using like an older oil that you need to use, and you're using it in an older vehicle, and you need to have that zinc, that added zinc protection. Because of the way the micro welds work in the heat, because of the way that the cams and everything operate, um, you need to know what you're doing. AMSOIL has a Z-Rod, a zinc dithiophosphate oil that's specifically made for classic cars. You see this little truck that I've got right here, and a truck like that with a period stock motor, engine, whatever you want to call it. In these types of vehicles, these engines, you need the zinc. You need the zinc dithiophosphate because of the way and everything works. The way that the engine's designed, the way it's built, and the way it runs and operates. You need that in there to help with reducing the wear, reducing the way that it I mean, basically micro wells. I mean, that's just one way. That's just one thing among many that we can touch on, and we can maybe we can do a video specifically on how the zinc, helps specifically. I need to brush up on it. I've got a lot going on. I'm running 3 YouTube channels, and I've got 3 eBay stores and an Amazon store. I'm wore out. So okay, so oil additives improve performance. That's not always true. All right. All synthetic oils are the same. Well, they're not. Okay. So, everybody says, oh, I swear by Mobil 1. I swear by, Mobil 1. I swear by Syntec. I swear by, you know, Pennzoil. And I swear by Castrol. And I'm not dogging those things. They're good oils. They're solid, and they will do the job that you ask it to do. They're going to do the job, but they're going to do the very minimum. Now, I'm not going to name names when I start talking about this specifically, but let's just talk about a big box brand of oil. And they say, well, we meet the minimum specifications set forth by the API for this vehicle, so and so, chem spec, and it lists this thing out. And you can go and Google the spec, and it tells you exactly what the viscosity test, the 4-ball wear test, and all these kind of all the different tests that they do on motor oil, and it meets the specification. Therefore, it's good for my car. It's great. Okay, so let's really, really talk about that. Okay, all right. So let's first talk about synthetic oil. Synthetic oil was invented for vehicles. We were first to market. AMSOIL was first to market on it. Synthetic oil is a group 3 hydrocracked or hydrotreated molecular structured motor oil. And what's happened is they take conventional oil and they refine it in such a way that they remove the uneven um, molecules in the oil. So basically, you've got one molecule that's this big, one's this big, in different oblong shapes, and they're just different things. Okay, and they make it all where it's uniform. So a synthetic, here's what really made sense to me, and it may make sense to you, is when you hit a tone on a synthesizer, synthetic synthesizer, okay? You hit a tone on that synthesizer, what does it do? It makes one simple note, okay? Now with the piano, it may just be slightly out of tune, so you're not synthesized. It's not exactly one tone. But on a synthesizer, on a piano synthesizer, keyboard synthesizer, bam, you've got boom, whatever it is, okay? That's essentially what they're doing with motor oil. They're taking the molecules and creating one size spec, okay? One size fits all, or one molecular size for you. And that has advantages beyond measure when it comes to motor oil. Okay. Um, so that's really, I mean, if you have Group 3 hydrotreated oil, that's Castrol, or it's Mobil 1, or it's AMSOIL. That base oil is basically the same thing. And in fact, it's necessarily the same thing. There is very, very small, minute differences. So, for argument's sake, we can say that they're the same. Okay. And then people say, well, they're just different blenders. AMSOIL's just another blender. Well, that's not true. AMSOIL's not just another blender. AMSOIL takes and really works on their product. They want to make it as high quality as possible. Whereas with, let's say, other brands, they want to say, well, we've got this oil, it meets this specification. Okay, and we want you, Mr. Oil Blender over here, to ship us an oil that will meet this specification at the very minimum. Okay, and that's what they do, and they just find the lowest bidder for that, and they're not married to anybody, and they're not married to any oil. Excuse me, I only had like 4 hours of sleep last night. I'm sorry. They only have four. Um, let's see, what was I saying? They take the lowest bidder, so they just take, they're not married to any manufacturer or blender. They just say, hey, I want to put this in my oil for next year, in my quarts or my 5 gallon buckets of oil for next year, and I want you to make sure that I've got so many gallons per day coming into the factory. And then they'll say, sure, no problem, and they'll make that up for them, and it'll meet that specification when the tribologist for Mobil One or whoever it is. I'm not dogging them. I'm just talking about how it works. And they'll go in there with their white coats, and they'll make the little their test, and they'll get in there and do it. All right. And it will meet the specification. Well, what does AMSOIL do? What's the difference between say them and say AMSOIL? Well, what is AMSOIL going to do for you? Well, AMSOIL is going to say, how good can we make this oil? How good can we make it? That's what AMSOIL does, and that's the separation between what just a regular blender is and just AMSOIL's just another blender. Let's just, her. Well, they don't understand that. Okay, synthetic oil. Let's go to this. This is what they don't understand. Everybody that talks to me about this, they don't understand it. Okay. So 25% synthetic oil is what is inside synthetic, when someone says full synthetic oil. That's what you're getting. You're getting 25% Group 3 hydrocracked or hydrotreated oil. Well, that's the same with AMSOIL, except AMSOIL states on the bottle that their oil is 100% synthetic. Okay. So you get 100% synthetic oil based on these factors. So why would you use something that has 75% conventional oil when synthetic oil has proven to be a better, a better choice for you? Now, this is a long video, but I'm sure that I do have fans. I do have people that watch these all the way through. So can you mix different brands of oil? Well, you can. You can put Mobil oil with AMSOIL. You can put Mobil 1 with Pennzoil. You can put Pennzoil with Castrol. You can put Castrol with Napa. You can put Napa with Mobil 1. You can put O'Reilly brand oil with AMSOIL, and it's all going to be okay. It's fine. It's going to consume. What's going to happen is, let's just say you mix something like Castrol and then put Pennzoil in it. Because you're going down the road and there's no Castrol at the gas station and you're a quart low or something like that. It's going to be okay. Even if you use AMSOIL and you're low and you can't find any AMSOIL and you're in the particular store that you're at or area that you're at, and you need a quart, you can put some Pennzoil in there. I mean, it's going to dilute the performance of AMSOIL. It's going to change the flora and fauna inside that engine, kind of, and so you're gonna have a little bit of a change. But if you're using AMSOIL and then you have to put in Pennzoil or Mobil 1 just to keep oil in the engine, which you really don't have to. AMSOIL is a fantastic oil. You could probably almost drain the stuff and keep going down the road for a couple of miles and you'd be okay. I'm serious. Um, it's that good because it leaves a film in there. But now I'm not advocating that you do that. So if you do that, that's on you. That is you at your own risk. I'm making that very clear. You do that at your own risk. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. So Oil never needs to be checked between changes. Well, I'm sorry. You need to check your oil on a daily basis. Every vehicle is different. You're going to have different consumption rates. There may be, um, you've got some space in the cylinder walls, and so you've got some blow by. You've also got some oil that's going to be burned in the during the combustion process, and it's just going to happen. And so you do need to check your oil and change your oil regularly according to your manufacturer and of course your oil manufacturer specifications. Let's see. Color indicates oil quality. That's not true. Not every oil quality, not every oil because it's black means it needs to be changed. It's not true. Sometimes the oil goes black because the additive inside of the oil is giving up of itself, and so that's what happens as the chemical change. It turns black, and that's what you're seeing. Okay. That's the issue that you're seeing with that. And so now sometimes it could be burned, but AMSOIL doesn't has a very high burn rate. The flash rate is really really high for AMSOIL, especially synthetic or signature series. Sorry. So you've got that going for you when you're using AMSOIL. Now when you're using other oils, you're going to see some differences. Um, Synthetic oil causes leaks in older engines, and that is a myth. Call your old mechanic. Tell him to skip to this, go to this video and skip and watch what I'm about to tell you. Synthetic oil does not cause engines to leak. Does not. And I'm just trying to be very clear about that. I'm not trying to sound like I'm too serious, like I'm so serious about this talk that I'm giving. But I really want to just kind of expound on this issue that synthetic oil does not cause your engine to leak. Well, let's talk about that for a minute though, because in the past it has happened. You've put in AMSOIL or you've introduced a really good synthetic oil like Mobil 1 or something. Let's just talk about it. Forget about AMSOIL just for a minute. I am an AMSOIL dealer, but let's just talk about Mobil 1 just for a minute. I don't sell Mobil 1. So let's talk about it just for a minute. Okay, so let's take an old beater car that you've got sitting in the back. Okay, and you go to work on it, and you say, you know what, this engine's still running good. Let's go ahead and let's change the oil and let's introduce some of that 20,000 mile premium synthetic oil from Mobil 1. Bam, let's go to Walmart. Bam, you go and introduce it. You put the new filter on there. You drain the oil, and you're really good about it. And you've done your oil change, and you're running down the road, and before you know it, you go and stop, and you smell oil, and you look underneath, and by God, the rear main seal hasn't done this before. Rear main seal is leaking. What are you gonna do? Well, what caused it? Oh, it's the Mobil 1 oil. It's that synthetic oil that we were supposed to put in there, so we shouldn't have done that. Should have listened to the old mechanic and listened to what he said. Yes and no. Okay, maybe just run like a really, conventional oil, but of course it's hard to find conventional oil. You would want to try to just find maybe a blend oil, synthetic blend oil. Okay, and that's what would help you. Well, let's talk about that just for a minute. What happens when you introduce synthetic oil to an older engine that's been running conventional oil for hundreds of thousands of miles? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, it's 1992, and you pull off the lot with a Nissan Civic or a Honda Civic, excuse me, not a Nissan Civic, Honda Civic. And you've been changing the oil every 3,000 miles religiously. I mean, you go 29,992 miles and you change the oil. You're changing oil. You're not letting it go over that 3,000 mark. Okay. And you've been good about it. And now it's got 390,000 miles and your daughter's driving it. And there's no leaks. There's no leaks because you've been changing the oil and you've been good about it, right? Well, your daughter says, I'm going to go do my dad a favor, and I'm going to go get a full synthetic oil change. That's going to be good, right? Well, what has happened in that 390,000 miles since 1992? Well, let's talk about what's going on inside that engine, all right? So let's say that some dirt got past the filter. When you've opened up the oil cap, a little bit of dirt got in there. It's going to happen no matter how methodical you are. It's going to happen. Some dirt's going to get in there. Uh, really inferior oil that you had to use that one time. It had some additives at the bottom. It had some gunk. If you ever use like a really cheap oil, if you go to like a dollar store and you pour the oil out and you look at the bottom and sometimes there is a sludge. There is a little bit of a junk that's been settled to the bottom. That's not supposed to be in there. You'll never find that in AMSOIL, by the way. Okay, so things like that go in there. Well, carbon exists in an engine, and it goes to the point of least resistance. And let's going to go to the seals. Okay, the seals in your engines are supposed to be lubricated. Okay, they're supposed to be highly lubricated at all times. Well, the carbon gets over the seal, and it carbons over the seal. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, what's the problem with that? Because it's going to stop oil from leaking even when the seal cracks. Well, you don't want the seal to crack. You want the seal to be lubricated. That's the whole point of having the seal there, right? So the it carbons over, okay? And let's say your daughter goes and gets this full synthetic oil change. He's trying to do her dad a favor. He doesn't have to change the oil. I'm trying to take care of my car. My dad gave me, okay? And 2 days later, she notices that she smells oil, looks under the car, and then the rear main seal or some other seal somewhere is leaking. And she takes it to you and says, Dad, it's starting to leak. What'd you do? You took it for a full synthetic oil change? No, you did what? No, you weren't supposed to do that. Why? Because synthetic oil makes engines leak. Well, that's just not true anymore. It's not true anymore. So what happened? Well, when you introduce the full synthetic oil, let's just say it was Mobil 1. Well, that synthetic oil, which is only 25% still, but it still is introduced into the system. The synthetic oil begins, and the additive package in that oil begins to clean the carbon. And that carbon gets cleaned off of the seal. Well, the seals have cracked. Okay? The seals have cracked, and it's allowing the oil to leak out because there's no more carbon there. It's actually cleaning it and sending that stuff to the filter. And that's doing what it's supposed to do, folks. And then all of a sudden, bam, you've got a leak. Oh, it's synthetic oil's fault. It's terrible. Brr. Yeah, that's just not true. Synthetic oil is doing what it does, especially if you introduce AMSOIL and you've got a vehicle with 500,000 miles on it and it starts to leak. Well, that's why, because you had a cracked seal. And it's not the oil's fault that the seal is now leaking or it cracked to begin with. So there's that. Okay, so that's what the whole myth about that is. You can't switch back to conventional oil after you switch to synthetic oil. Well, let's just bite that in the butt real quick. You can go synthetic oil to conventional oil. Does not matter. It does not matter. I don't care who says it. I don't care if you've been a mechanic since the 50s and you're like 120 and still spry and you think you know what you're talking about. As far as that goes, I'm sure that you know a lot of things and I'll give you respect for that. But you certainly can go from conventional to synthetic, conventional. There's no issue there. Oil filter changes are unnecessary with every oil change. Well, I'm here to tell you, you never know how much crap is in an engine when you change the oil that's left over at the bottom of the pan that doesn't leak down when the mechanic or yourself unscrews the oil change or the oil drain screw. So the oil change bolt, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. You guys know what I'm talking about. You wanna change the filter every time. You do not want to skip changing the filter. Do not do this ever, 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 ever. I don't care if you use an AMSOIL or not, because you don't know what maybe at the bottom of that pan it gets churned up in the oil. So always do that. Well, this is kind of me, my first live. I hope you guys were able to watch it. Please subscribe. We need subscribers. We need watch hours. We need folks to watch. So if you like this kind of content and you like the kind of things that we've been talking about, please consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate it. My name is Brian, your Peter Synthetics, your AMSOIL oil dealer. If you need anything, please get in touch with me. It's all in my channel. You can certainly find it. We've got it all over the place. If I can answer any questions for you, please get in contact with me. We'll be glad to help you and assist you with obtaining the correct AMSOIL for your particular application. Okay. So again, as always, my name is Brian Peters here at Peters Synthetics. We go deep. Have a great day.